So every now and then I am lucky enough to get in on one of the Great Eastern Cutlery drops, but this was actually Collector Knives early reserve system that he has, and I just so happened to get in on it in time, which is something that doesn't happen very often. Because if you're not holding your phone the minute the notification comes in, you're going to miss it. I just so happened to be on my phone. It came in, and I quick went over to the website, signed in, and I got on the reserve list. So I got lucky. And the way he does the reserve list now is you just are in for any of the knives, and whatever is left is what you have to choose from. Thankfully, the knife that I wanted was still available when my turn on the reserve list came around. The knife I wanted was still available. So this was around, I think, 125 ish dollars, something like that. It's a TC Barlow, a Titty Cutlery Barlow. It is a number 14, and it has a sheep's foot blade and a pen blade. Um, but as a lover of the Barlow pocket knife, when these were announced and the pictures of them started coming out and everything, I really wanted one. Now, of course, the first run was the just boys' knife style knife with a bottle opener, and then I started seeing these Barlows, and I'm like, oh, I really want one of those because I have a 14 Barlow, but it's a 14 clip point, and it doesn't have a secondary blade or anything, um, and it's a little small. But I think with the sheep's foot blade, I'm a little bit more okay with it being a little smaller. Um, and you can see kind of here how small it is compared to a normal-ish Barlow. It's a little bit smaller than a 15. I should have grabbed a 15, but I didn't think about it. But the handle is like 3 inches long. The blade is about 2.5. It looks like something like that. About 2.5. You get a cutting edge of about 2.25, maybe slightly less than 2.25. Um, but typical Great Eastern Cutlery quality. The sheepsfoot blade looks pretty cool. It's got the good as gold etch on it there that they've been using pretty frequently on some of their knives. Now, this was actually an old, like, I don't know how to explain it, but an old, phrase used to sell the original Titty Cutlery, the good as gold thing. And of course, the Tang Stamp Titty Cutlery Titusville, PA model number. Of course, this was this year, and it's a 14. So 14, and it's got a 3, which guess is the sheep's foot blade. It's a 2 blade, and it was made in 2023. So that's what all those numbers mean, pretty much. Um, the action on the knife is pretty good. Both blades have half stops. Um, Action on it's pretty good, especially for a smaller knife. Let's open that pen blade. As you would pretty much expect, the pen blade's a little bit less snappy than the main blade, but you come to expect that. Pen blade has GEC carbon stamped on it, nothing on that side. It's got these steel bolsters with the TC Titty Cutlery stamp on them, like a proper Barlow. No shield or anything, just a stamp on the bolster. And it's got a lined bolster too, I believe we call those. These beautiful saw cut. What color bone is this supposed to be? Autumn peach saw cut bone, and it looks fantastic. I really wish that the sepia natural bone TCs that came out a few years ago, I wish they would have had a better saw cut like this one, and the 77s that came out a couple years ago. The saw cuts on those were kind of disappointing. The saw cut on both of the 14s I have now have been great. Uh-oh, does this bone have a crack in it? Oh no. It looks like it has a crack in it. I'm gonna have to look at that a little bit better. Give me a second here. I think that might be a crack. Oh, just bumped my tripod. I think that might be a crack right there. Um, So I'll probably just put some super glue over it. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with bone, but it does look like a pin crack a little bit. Um, Sometimes it's hard to tell with bone if it's a crack or if it's just like a natural imperfection in the bone, like part of the pores or whatever. Like if I hold this up really close here, you can see there's other little like imperfections in the bone. But this right here looks quite a bit like a crack. So I'm not sure about that. That might be a crack. It might also not be a crack. Not sure. I'll probably put a little bit of super glue over that just to make sure it stays. Somebody's going to say to send it back and everything. I'm not going to do that just because I'll probably just put a little bit of super glue over it and call it good. Just because, that's kind of what I do. I don't really send things back very much or pretty much at all, really. Um, but anyway, moving past that, other than that little bit that looks like a crack there, the saw cut looks really good, I have to say. They're beautiful handles and everything. Fit and finish on the knife, other than that bit there that looks like a crack, um, is good. There's no gaps or anything. Um, and overall, pretty good. No blade play, I don't think. Don't feel any. What about the pen blade? Yeah, no blade play. That's always good for me. Of course, with this being a sheep's foot blade, the pen blade's a little bit. To use the pen blade, you kind of have to hold it like this because the sheep's foot blade is so much like sticks out so far. So to use the pen blade, it's much more comfortable to hold it in a grip like this than it is to try to wrap your hand around it. Not really a problem, just a um, symptom of it being a sheep's foot blade. The fact that when you're using the secondary blade, the sheep's foot is closed, it sticks out really far. Um, the tip isn't proud or anything. Logan Stat would be happy with that. But yeah, so awesome little knife. Pretty well done. I love the steel TC bolsters on these. The 15 Barlow, the TC 15, is one of the most like popular knives out there. These 14s are slightly less popular when it comes to Great Eastern cutlery knives than the 15. Because I feel like the 15 is just about the perfect size and the 14 is just a little bit smaller than perfect. That being said, my plan is to carry this knife quite a bit and see how I like it and everything. But I will definitely have to pay attention to this to see if it gets any worse or anything, and I'll get a better look at it here once I turn off my phone filming. But it certainly does look like a crack, and I didn't notice that before I turned on the phone here to do the video. So I don't know. I'll have to look at that, get a better look at it and everything. But I am excited that I got in on one of the new Great Eastern Cutlery releases. I don't think I've gotten one since the Cotton Sampler and the Pruner. What was the Pruner called? I don't remember what the Pruner was called. But I think that was the last like new Great Eastern Cutlery knives that I actually got in on, like the drop or the early reserve list or any of that kind of stuff. Um, so I was excited to get in on one of those, and I was so happy that I got the exact one that I wanted. I think people went after like the Northfield versions of the knife more, whereas for me it was just always I wanted one of the Barlows, and if I could, I wanted the saw cut bone Barlow. There was also a Delrin saw cut one, I think, which was interesting, but I really prefer bone. Of course, with the Delrin, you wouldn't have to worry about cracks and stuff as much. Um, and I think there was some other handle options. I think there was a wood, like a ebony, which would have been, I think, my second choice. Um, After the saw cut would have been the ebony, just because when I think of like pocket knives, I think especially when I think of Barlows, I think like saw cut, bone, and then wood, like the handle materials. I think of when I think of a Barlow pocket knife. Um, but anyway, so neat little knife. Great Eastern Cutlery always does a pretty good job on these. Um, and of course, these days, just getting them is a real achievement these days. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely have to look at that when I turn off the camera here, see what it looks like up close and everything. Probably with like a flashlight and everything, and see what I think it really is. Because if it's a crack, I'll probably just try to stabilize it with some super glue. But it may just be some sort of imperfection in the bone. That does sometimes happen with it being a natural material and everything. And of course, a bone has some like pores and everything in it, of course. Um, but overall, I'm happy with the knife, especially considering the fact that I paid the new price for them and not some sort of secondary price gougey price, like I did for the other 14, I think. But I'm really all about the Barlow pocket knife, and I'm always excited to get a new Barlow, just because I think it's a neat knife that has a lot of history and everything. I do wish that they do a 14 with a spear blade TC Barlow, because I'd love to have that. Just because I really think this spear blade has become one of my. I think the spear blade has become my favorite um, blade shape for a traditional pocket knife. That being said, I still really love the clip blade and everything, but I think the spear blade is just an all-around good pocket knife blade, in my opinion. Now, sheep split blade is extremely like utilitarian. It's really good for opening boxes, opening things, cutting twine, all sorts of stuff like that. Like if you're a man who does a lot of, hard work and stuff, a sheep's foot blade is a great knife to have because, you're cutting, stuff a lot, doing a lot of like pull cuts or, opening stuff and stuff like that. It's really good for that. One of my reasons why the sheep's foot blade isn't my favorite blade is if I'm cutting food, it's kind of a pain in the butt because, like, if I'm cutting like a sandwich in half, for instance, the tip of the blade is dragging on like the plate or whatever I'm cutting it on. So that's a little frustrating. But the good thing about this particular knife is I have a pen blade. So if I'm cutting something small, some sort of small food, like a sandwich might be slightly too big for this, but I could try to cut sandwich with this. And the good thing about a blade that's not a sheep's foot blade is you kind of drag the belly on whatever you're cutting with instead of the very tip, um, which tends to round off the tip and everything, especially if you're cutting on like a ceramic plate. But anyway, that's going to be it for the video on this Great Eastern Cutlery 14 TC Barlow. I will see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a good day.